In the heart of an endless desert, where the sun burned without mercy, where no sound dared to live and no drop of water had ever touched the sand, a lone woman stood. Her name was Hajar. Behind her lay miles of emptiness. Before her, a destiny only written by Allah. She held her infant son Ismail close to her chest. His lips were dry, his cries soft, and her eyes full of questions. Why had her husband, the Prophet Ibrahim, walked away? Why had he left them here in a land without life? But Hajar did not curse. She did not break. She only whispered one question. Did Allah command this? When Ibrahim nodded, her tears stopped. Her fear vanished. And in that moment, faith became her only companion. The desert was silent, but heaven was listening. As her feet touched the burning sand, she began to run, not away from pain, but toward a promise. From Safa to Marwah she ran, again and again. 7 times, her heart cried for help. And the earth itself responded. A sound, a tremor, a miracle. From beneath her son's heel, water burst forth, pure, eternal, alive. Zamzam. What began as a test of faith became the foundation of a holy city, and the story of one woman's patience became the heartbeat of every believer who walks between Safa and Marwah today. This is not just her story. This is the echo of faith, that when the world turns silent, Allah still answers. Divine command. The wind was dry, the horizon endless, and silence ruled the desert like a king. Far from the noise of the world, Ibrahim walked with a heart heavier than mountains. Behind him walked Hajar, holding their infant son. Ismail, her steps uncertain, her eyes filled with trust yet trembling with questions. They had journeyed for days under the blazing sun, through valleys where no sound of life existed. No shade offered comfort, and no river kissed the sand. Yet Ibrahim walked because this was not a journey of choice. It was a command from Allah, clear, firm, and absolute. When they reached a barren land surrounded by rugged hills, Ibrahim stopped. There was nothing here, no trees, no people, not even a whisper of life. Hajar looked around in confusion, then looked at her husband. His silence pierced the air. Without a word, he placed a small pouch of dates and a skin of water beside her and turned to leave. Her voice trembled. Ibrahim, where are you going? Will you leave us here, in this land where there is no one to help us? He kept walking, his eyes low, his heart breaking with every step. Then she called again, louder, her voice echoing through the valley. Is this what Allah has commanded you to do? Ibrahim stopped. His body froze. He turned slightly and whispered, his voice weak yet filled with surrender. Yes. In that moment, the storm within her settled. She nodded slowly, tears glistening but her faith shining brighter than the sun. Then he will not abandon us, she said softly. As Ibrahim walked away, he looked toward the empty sky and prayed, O Allah, I have left my family in a valley without vegetation, near your sacred house, so that they may establish prayer. So make hearts among people inclined toward them, and provide for them from your mercy. The desert swallowed his footsteps. The test had begun. The test of separation. The sun hung mercilessly above the desert, painting the horizon in gold and fire. The sound of Ibrahim's footsteps faded slowly, swallowed by the wind and the sand. Every step he took away from his family felt like a dagger in his heart. Yet he did not turn back. For this was not a man walking away. It was a servant obeying the command of his Lord. Behind him, Hajar stood still, her heart racing between fear and faith. She looked at the tiny figure of her husband, growing smaller in the distance, and then at her child Ismail resting quietly in her arms. The silence around her was unbearable. No birds, no breeze, no sound of life, just emptiness. For a moment the thought struck her, how can a mother survive here? How can this child live in a place where even shadows die? But then she remembered the words that had just been spoken. Yes, Allah commanded this, her tears dried. Her soul steadied. What had seemed like abandonment now felt like destiny. She sat beside her baby, whispering softly, "If Allah has written this, then He has already written our rescue too." Her eyes searched the horizon, not for help from men, but for a sign from the one who never forgets his servants. Far away, Ibrahim reached a place where the valley ended. He could no longer see them, but his heart could still feel their presence. There he stopped and raised his hands to the sky, his voice trembling as he prayed, "O my Lord, make me and my descendants steadfast in prayer. O our Lord, accept my prayer." The wind carried his words across the sands, and perhaps, in that very moment, those prayers became the unseen shield around Hajar and her son. That day, the desert witnessed a love beyond human understanding, the love of a mother who trusted, and the faith of a father who obeyed. It was the test of separation, but also the beginning of a miracle yet to come. Loneliness in the desert. The desert was silent now. Not a single sound echoed through the endless waves of sand. The sun burned fiercely above, its light heavy and unforgiving. Hajar sat beside a small rock, holding her baby Ismail close to her chest. The last trace of her husband Ibrahim had vanished beyond the hills. There was no one left, no voice to answer, no shadow to comfort her. Loneliness settled upon her like a storm. The air was still, yet her heart thundered within her chest. She looked at the pouch of dates and the skin of water left behind. It was all they had, and even that seemed too little for a single day. As hours passed, the desert began to change. The heat grew sharper. The silence grew louder. The baby stirred, crying softly, his tiny lips dry from thirst. Hajar's arms trembled as she held him tighter, whispering words of comfort, though her own heart trembled with fear. She looked up to the sky, vast, empty, endless. "Oh Allah," she whispered, "you are the one who commanded this. You are the one who sees me. Do not let me be forgotten." The wind blew softly, brushing her face like an unseen hand. In that moment she felt something powerful, not the presence of people, but the nearness of Allah. Her loneliness began to transform. What was once fear became surrender. What was once silence became prayer. She realized that being alone in the desert did not mean being abandoned. It meant being chosen to witness something that no other heart could bear. As night fell, the stars lit the sky above her, thousands of tiny lanterns flickering in the darkness. Hajar looked at them and smiled faintly. "If Allah can light the heavens with stars," she whispered, "He can surely guide me through this night." She held her baby close and closed her eyes, her faith stronger than her hunger, her hope louder than the silence around her. The desert may have been empty, but Hajar was never truly alone. The cry of a child. The sun rose again, merciless and golden, over the barren desert. Days had begun to blur into one another. The small pouch of dates was now empty. The water skin, once cool to the touch, hung dry beside Hajar. Her lips were cracked, her strength fading, but her heart still burned with faith. Beside her lay Ismail, his tiny chest rising and falling with shallow breaths. His soft cries pierced the silence, each one sharper than the sting of the desert wind. The mother's heart within her shattered with every sound. She could bear hunger, she could bear thirst, but she could not bear the cry of her child. Her hands trembled as she tried to soothe him. "Please, my son, be still," she whispered. Though tears had already blurred her vision, she looked around, nothing but the endless horizon. No water, no shade, no sign of life. Only the echo of a baby's cry filling the air. For a moment, despair crept in, but then something inside her refused to give up. This was not the voice of defeat. It was the voice of a mother whose faith was stronger than her fear. She stood up. Her legs shook beneath her, but she began to move. She could not watch her child suffer. She would search. She would run. She would fight the desert itself if she had to. The heat was unbearable. Her breath came in gasps. But still she moved forward, from one hill to the next. Her eyes searched every corner of the barren land. "Oh Allah," she cried, "show me your mercy. Do not let my child die before my eyes." The desert gave no answer, only silence. Yet Hajar's determination burned brighter than the sun above her. Each cry of her baby became her strength, pushing her to keep moving, keep hoping, keep believing, because somewhere deep in her soul she knew. When a mother cries for her child, Allah listens, and though the world was silent, heaven was preparing to speak. Safa or Marwah ki dot. The air shimmered under the heat of the sun, and the sands of the valley seemed to breathe with fire. Hajar looked down at her baby, Ismail, lying helplessly on the ground. His cries grew weaker, his lips pale, his tiny hands reaching toward her. She couldn't bear to see him suffer any longer. Her heart was breaking, yet her faith whispered, "Move." She turned toward a nearby hill, Safa. Her feet sank into the hot sand as she began to climb, her body trembling, her breath short. When she reached the top, she shaded her eyes with her hands and looked across the endless valley, searching desperately for water, for help, for life. But there was nothing. Only the heavy silence of the desert. She ran down the slope, her heart pounding in her chest. She reached the bottom and started toward the next hill, Marwah. The ground burned beneath her feet, but she did not stop. The cries of her son echoed behind her, fueling every step. She climbed Marwah and looked again, still nothing. Her hope flickered, but her faith did not die. She ran back toward Safa. Again she climbed. Again she looked. Again she found nothing. Once, twice, 3 times her legs bled. Her breath trembled, but she kept running. 4, 5, 6. Each time she climbed, the valley witnessed her strength. The strength of a mother who refused to surrender, a believer who refused to doubt. And finally, the 7th time, she reached Marwah, her body weak, her voice gone, her tears dry, yet her spirit unbroken. She stood there whispering, "Oh Allah, you see me, you know me, you are enough for me." That run, that sacred struggle between Safa and Marwah became immortal. A mother's desperate footsteps turned into an act of worship for all generations to come. Today, millions retrace her path during Hajj, not just to honor her, but to remember that faith runs even when hope seems lost. Between Safa and Marwah, the desert learned to echo with the sound of faith, the miracle of Zamzam. The desert stood still, watching. The wind had stopped. The air had grown heavy. Hajar's legs trembled, her chest heaved with exhaustion, and her eyes burned from tears and sunlight. She had run 7 times between Safa and Marwah, yet no sign of water appeared. Her heart ached with helplessness. Down below, her baby Ismail lay on the scorching sand. His tiny feet kicked weakly. His soft cries had become faint whispers. Hajar could no longer bear to look. The sight tore her soul apart. She fell to her knees and lifted her hands to the sky. "Oh Allah," she cried, her voice breaking in desperation. "You are the most merciful. Do not let my child die before my eyes. You commanded this, so now show me your mercy." Her tears disappeared into the sand. Silence followed. For a moment, even the world seemed to hold its breath, and then it happened. A soft sound, and faint, distant, like a whisper beneath the earth. Hajar turned, confused. Again she heard it, a bubbling sound. Her eyes widened. She rushed toward her son. There beside his tiny heel the sand trembled. The ground broke open. From beneath, water burst forth, pure, clear, cold, alive. Hajar gasped, falling to her knees beside it. Her hands moved fast, shaping the sand around the water to keep it from escaping. "Zamzam!" she cried. "Oh, stop, stop!" Not to stop the blessing, but to contain it. The spring continued to gush, cool and endless, a miracle flowing in the heart of death. She lifted the water in her trembling hands and pressed it to her lips. Life returned. Then she gave some to her baby, watching as his cries turned into calm. His breath deepened, his eyes opened. In that moment, Hajar understood. Allah never abandons those who trust him. The desert that had once been silent now sang with life. The miracle of Zamzam had begun, a spring that would never run dry, a mercy that would never end. And from that single drop of faith, the world was changed forever. The birth of a city, from the heart of an endless desert, where once there was nothing but silence, life began to bloom. The spring of Zamzam continued to flow, pure, shimmering like liquid light beneath the sun. Around it, the once desolate valley of Makkah started to breathe again. Birds began to circle the air above it, a rare sight in that barren land. Caravans traveling through the region saw the birds from afar and knew that where birds flew, water existed. Slowly, one by one, travelers, wanderers, and tribes approached. They found Hajar and her son Ismail living beside the miraculous well, surrounded by grace. The tribesmen of Jurhum, astonished by the sight, approached her with respect. They asked for permission to settle near the water. Hajar, wise and composed, agreed, but with one sacred condition: the well will remain mine and my son's. They accepted, and thus began the first human settlement in this forgotten valley, a seed that would one day grow into the holiest city on earth. As years passed, tents turned into homes. Voices filled the air where once there had been only the whispers of the wind. Children laughed, animals grazed, and merchants began to pass through, marking this place as a center of life. In the middle of the desert, surrounded by mountains, a city was being born, not through power, nor through conquest, but through faith and patience. The water of Zamzam became its heartbeat, and the presence of Hajar and Ismail became its spirit. Every sunrise in Makkah told a new story of hope. The story of a mother who obeyed, a son who endured, and a God who never forgot his promise. And though no one could see it then, that small valley, humble, hidden, and quiet, was destined for greatness. It would become Makkah, the center of the world, the place where hearts from every corner of the earth would one day turn in worship. From the footsteps of one woman's faith, an entire city rose, built not on stone but on trust, sacrifice, and divine love, the rebuilding of the Kaaba. Years had passed. Ismail had grown, strong, patient, and wise. The boy who once cried beside the sand now stood tall, a reflection of his father's faith and his mother's courage. The valley of Makkah was alive, yet something within its heart still waited, a command, a destiny, a sacred calling that would soon unfold. One day, Ibrahim returned. His beard carried the color of time, his eyes the depth of remembrance. As he embraced his son, the silence between them spoke louder than words, a silence filled with the echoes of divine purpose. Then came the command from Allah, clear, majestic, eternal: raise my house upon this earth. Together, father and son turned toward the open valley. The sun hung heavy above. The mountains stood like silent witnesses. Ibrahim lifted his gaze to the sky and whispered, "My Lord, make this a place of worship and peace." They began to build, stone by stone. They worked, their hands bruised, their robes covered in dust, yet their hearts glowing with light. Ismail fetched the stones. Ibrahim placed them one upon another, forming the sacred structure that would one day become the Kaaba, the beating heart of the world. As the walls rose, Ibrahim stood upon a rock, the Maqami Ibrahimin, and called out, "O my Lord, accept this from us. Indeed, you are the all-hearing, the all-knowing." His voice echoed through the valley, reaching the heavens, and in that moment, the earth felt the weight of divine purpose settling upon it. When the structure was complete, it was simple: No gold, no marble, no decoration. Yet it radiated more beauty than any palace, for it was built with sincerity, sweat, and tears of devotion. The angels watched. The winds stilled. The Kaaba stood pure and eternal, a symbol of submission, a house for the worship of the one God. From that day onward, the valley of Makkah became sacred. Every grain of sand, every breath of air carried the memory of two men, a father and a son, who built not just a house of stone, but a monument of faith that would live forever. The call to pilgrimage. The Kaaba now stood firm, humble in structure but unmatched in spirit. The sun rose and fell upon its black stones, and the winds whispered its name across the empty deserts. Yet though the house of Allah was complete, it stood in silence. No footsteps, no worshippers, no hearts beating in devotion around it. Then came the divine command once more, soft yet mighty, clear yet eternal. O Ibrahim, proclaim the pilgrimage among mankind. Let them come to you hand and foot on every lean camel from every distant path. Ibrahim looked around at the endless mountains, the empty horizon. His voice was but a whisper in this vast hollow land. He raised his hands and asked, "My Lord, how will my voice reach them? There is no one here to hear me." And the reply came, "Your duty is to call. It is mine to deliver." So Ibrahim climbed a high place. Some say the Mount of Abu Qubais, others say the Maqami Ibrahim, and he stood tall, his heart trembling with obedience. He raised his hands toward the sky and called out with all his soul, "O mankind, your Lord has built a house, come to it. Come to the worship of the one who created you." His voice echoed through the valley, carried by the winds passing over deserts, mountains, and seas, reaching the ears and hearts of all generations to come. In that unseen realm, souls answered, "Labbaik Allahumma labbaik." Here we are, O Allah, here we are. And with that call, Hajj was born, not just as a journey of distance, but a journey of surrender. Centuries passed, yet that single cry still lives. Every year, millions leave their homes and follow the same path, walking where Ibrahim once walked, circling the same Kaaba, drinking from the same Zamzam, and running between the same hills where Hajar once ran. The call of one man, made in an empty desert, now echoes in every corner of the earth, a timeless reminder that when faith speaks, the whole world listens. The legacy of faith. The sun began to set over the valley of Makkah, casting long golden shadows across the sacred house. The wind moved gently around the Kaaba, whispering the stories of sacrifice, trust, and divine promise. What had begun with a command, a test that once broke a father's heart and a mother's strength, had now become a legacy that would guide the world till the end of time. Ibrahim, old and weary, looked upon the Kaaba one last time, his eyes filled with tears, not of sorrow but of gratitude. He had done what his Lord commanded. He had left behind not wealth, not monuments of power, but a path of pure submission. Beside him stood his son Ismail, strong and humble, a reflection of patience itself. Together they had built a house, but more than that, they had built a bond between heaven and earth. In their story lies the essence of faith, not in words, but in action. It was faith that made Ibrahim walk into the unknown. It was faith that made Hajar run through the desert. It was faith that made Ismail lay his head down in surrender. Generations later, from their blessed lineage would come a man whose light would complete the message. Prophet Muhammad, the final messenger, who would purify this house once more and call all of humanity to the same truth, La ilaha illallah. Every stone of the Kaaba, every drop of Zamzam, every grain of sand in that valley carries their memory. When millions gather there today, wearing white and walking in circles around that house, they are not just performing a ritual, they are walking through history, retracing the steps of the chosen ones. This is the legacy of faith, a legacy that began with one command and continues through every believer's heart. It teaches us that real faith is not comfort but courage, not ease but endurance. And as the desert night falls, the Kaaba still stands, silent yet alive, reminding the world that when hearts trust their Creator, even the barren sand can bloom with eternity. Outro. And so, the story that began in silence ends in eternal remembrance. A barren desert once empty, now beats with the footsteps of millions. A mother's tears became a spring of mercy. A father's obedience became the foundation of faith. And a son's patience became the heartbeat of submission. This was never just a story. It was a message, a mirror, a reminder that when the world seems dry and hopeless, Allah's mercy still flows. When you are alone, unseen, unheard, He still watches, He still plans, He still provides. From Hajar's desperate run to Ibrahim's trembling hands, to the first cry of Labbaik Allahumma Labbaik, this legacy was written not on paper, but upon hearts that never stopped believing. Today, every pilgrim who circles the Kaaba walks through the same faith that once filled that desert, a faith that outlived time itself. And as the winds of Makkah move around the sacred house, they still whisper the same truth. Those who trust Allah never lose, they become eternal.